Welcome to another edition of Bet with Bobano, Monday, May 27th. Ian Cameron. It might just be me today. I told Connor Mack, who's usually with me, that it is Memorial Day. I knew it was a holiday. I'd still be doing this show. He could be, if he wanted to join up me, he could. Not because it's a holiday, no problem. So we may or may not see Mac. Stay tuned, apparently, to see whether he'll join me or not. But if not, it'll just be us. We'll break down the MLB card. And, of course, we have one NBA playoff game taking place now. Actually, you know what we'll do? We'll look ahead to both of them because we won't be back until Wednesday on this show. So we'll talk both conference finals. Game 4 in the East tonight, Game 4 in the West tomorrow night with the NBA. So we'll start with baseball, as we always do, and we will begin with, you know what? These games are all about to start right now. So I'm just going to give you a rapid fire what I took. I'm on Cincinnati, Nadolo over Lynn. Cincinnati, I took them at minus 145, full game money line against St. Louis. I like Nadolo a little bit more than I like Lance Lynn. The Cardinals have had issues against lefties. The Cardinals also are coming off, Sunday night baseball. Last night, a very late night when that game ended against the Chicago Cubs. So a little bit of a tricky spot as well for the Cardinals situationally. So I like Cincinnati there. I laid the $1.45. I also played a little bit over 9 in that game as well. Nats and Braves. I took a small shot with Parker and the Nats. First 5 money line, a smaller shot on the full game money line with Washington. Parker's pitched pretty solidly here for the Nationals more often than not. And, Atlanta is still one of those teams where offensively it hasn't been fluid for them like it's been when they're at their best. I think there's reasons, I think, to take a shot with Washington there at a pretty nice price in that game. That one just about to start. I'm on the Brewers. As much as I like Justin Steele, he hasn't pitched well since he's returned to the rotation. The Cubs are off Sunday night baseball too, just like I talked about with St. Louis. Tough spot. Milwaukee, cheap price, even money at home. I thought Milwaukee was the way to go there in that game. Full game money line with the Brewers. Again, you can get that around minus 105. And then the other game that's about to start, Cleveland and Colorado. We've seen a pitching change for the Rockies. Molina now pitching, Curry for the Guardians. I still like runs in that game. I bet over 10.5. It went to 11, pretty much 11 across the board. I still like the over 11 here, minus 120 when it comes to the Guardians and the Rockies. All right, the rest of the card. We've really only got 3 more games besides after the slew that are just about to begin. We got the Phillies and the Giants. Taijuan Walker versus Blake Snell, the pitching matchup. We've got the Giants minus 135 home favorites. 8 the total here, pretty much across the board in this one. I like the over here. I don't trust Taijuan Walker for the Philadelphia Phillies. I probably lean San Francisco a little bit too with Blake Snell back home, where I think he might be able to pitch a little bit better. That Phillies lineup's always a little bit scary. But I like the over more than anything here. I got it 7.5 minus 120. It's gone up to 8. I think you're going to see runs in that game. We know the Phillies lineup has been one of the most dangerous, best lineups in Major League Baseball, pretty much from the beginning of the season. So very, very difficult to keep them off the scoreboard entirely. Blake Snell's had some ups and downs. I do think he'll pitch better, and I think he'll maybe outpitch Walker here. So I do, like I said, I do lean to the Giants here as small home favorites. Small look to them. I like the over as well here, 7.5 with the Phillies and the Giants. We've got the Miami Marlins and the San Diego Padres. Trevor Rogers, Michael King, the pitching matchup. Padres minus 190 home favorites, 7.5 the total. Padres get a big win against the Yankees on Sunday to avoid the sweep. We'll see if they can carry that over here to this game as they take on the Miami Marlins. Rogers is someone that hasn't exactly been someone I've been fond of the way he's pitched necessarily here for the Miami Marlins this season. You look at Rogers' last start against the Brewers. He gave up 4 runs, 6 hits, 3.2 innings. Really, 3 of his last 4 starts just haven't been very good. He got absolutely rocked by Oakland the beginning of the month, 8 runs, only lasted 2.1 innings. Then he gave up 5 runs, 9 hits in only 3.1 innings against the Phillies. So, and again, a very good lineup, but still he hasn't pitched all that great. So, I would maybe look at a Padres team total over, but boy, this lineup is not easy to trust, and the consistency wise, you don't know what you're going to get. I mean, they've been all over the map. They got shut out in back-to-back games last week. Then they score 7 and 6 back-to-back against the Reds. Then they score 0. They got shut out in the first game against the Yankees. They only score 1 run after that. And yesterday they did get a little bit of damage done against Schmidt, but it's, even against pitching where you would think the Padres lineup has an advantage, it's not always easy to trust this group. And they're only hitting .216 against lefties, as a team on the year. So it feels like they should be able to get to Rogers, but it hasn't always been able to be a situation that you can count on the Padres in these spots. So I'm going to pass on this game. Just no interest really, either side or total. And then the final game of this Major League Baseball slate, Houston and Seattle. We've got Framber Valdez, the lefty, for the Astros. Bryce Miller for the Seattle Mariners. Houston minus 125 road favorites. 7.5 being the total here, shaded to the under. Maybe a first 5 under here in this game. I know Bryce Miller got touched and roughed up a little bit in the last 2 games and the last 2 starts, but both of those were on the road. And I believe Connor and I, last time we were on this show, Bryce Miller was pitching. We talked about how he's got a little bit of a home road dichotomy going this season where he really has struggled on the road, Bryce Miller, and he gave up 5 runs, 6 hits, 5 runs in 6 innings to the Yankees, 5 runs in 5.1 innings to Baltimore. But he has also pitched pretty solidly at home this season. His last 2 home starts has given up just 3 runs in his last 13 innings pitched here in Seattle at T-Mobile Park. And it's worth noting one of those starts for Bryce Miller came against Atlanta. So he has pitched a lot better here at home. It wouldn't surprise me if that continues. Last year, he pitched against the Astros once here in this ballpark, and he shut him out in 6 innings and pitched very well and held them just to 2 hits in that game. And 2 of his starts against Houston last year were very good, including one of the 2 that he pitched at Minute Maid Park in Houston. So, he actually does have solid numbers, Bryce Miller, against the Astros. We'll see if that continues. Framber Valdez, he had pitched really 3 pretty good starts in a row of his last 4 until he ran into the Angels in his last start, and he got walloped. He gave up 3 home runs, 8 runs, 10 hits, lasted only 5 innings. But I think this is a chance for him maybe to have a little bit of a bounce-back spot here for the Houston Astros and pitch better. And keep in mind the scheduling spot. I almost took Bryce Miller in Seattle here as a home underdog, and I leaned that way as far as first 5 full game split here with Seattle. But I couldn't bring myself to bet it. And the main reason for that is because Seattle is coming off this very long road trip. They have been out on the East Coast for a very long time, a trip that started on May 27th. So pretty much a 10-day road trip, 3 games in Baltimore, 4 games in New York against the Yankees, and then they wrapped it up with 3 in Washington against the Nationals over the weekend. So just very, very extensive travel here for the Mariners, and I don't like, and especially with no day off either. They played yesterday. Every team plays on Sunday, so there's no day off. East Coast to West Coast travel. A lot of times, it's very difficult for teams to put their best foot forward in spots like that. So I'm going to probably look toward probably a first 5 under. I would lean if I were to get involved. And like I said, I think I want to look for spots to back Bryce Miller at home because I think he does his best work there. But again, coming off this road trip, I don't love it enough to bet it. So yeah, for me here, it's going to be just a lean to the first 5 under, lean to Seattle, but nothing official for me. Did not bet that game. I don't expect to be in action with it either. As far as that's concerned. All right, so that is MLB. Like I said, most of the games were afternoon games today on this Memorial Day. And, of course, we also had the one postponement with the Dodgers and the Mets as well. But let's move on to NBA. We do have conference finals action each of the next 2 nights. We'll look ahead to tonight with the Boston Celtics and the Indiana Pacers. 2 teams, well, we got both of the teams in each conference final, Boston and Dallas, looking for the sweep. We've got Boston 7.5-point road favorites tonight in game 4 of the NBA Eastern Conference Final. 222.5 right now is the total tonight in this game. I came back with Indiana in game 3, even without Tyrese Halliburton on the floor. I figured down to 2-0 at home, you're still going to get one heck of an effort from the Pacers. You're going to get a bunch of different people stepping up, and you sure did. You got Turner and Siakam got 22 each, and then the big contributions were 23 off the bench from TJ McConnell, who I thought was outstanding. And then, of course, just a superb performance by Andrew Nembhard, 32 points in Game 3 to give the Indiana Pacers a chance to obviously win that game. And it's so unfortunate. Again, that's 2 games in this series where you could say Indiana probably should have won, and twice they failed to close the door. 18-point lead at one point in Game 3. They couldn't convert. They couldn't hold it. Boston comes back. It's a great shot-making display down the stretch by the Celtics. You do have to give them credit, but at the same point in time, we know Indiana's defense at times in the crunch of the game, crunch time, is just not delivered. And I think we definitely saw signs of that again in Game 3. You look at tonight, obviously, one thing about Indiana, okay, Game 1 they should have won. They were up 115 to 110 with a minute to go. Somehow they got to find a way to bring that game home. You've got to win that. They didn't. Game 2, Boston did play better and ended up pulling away and getting the victory. And again, Game 3, though, Indiana responds. They were good enough to win that game. They led comfortably most of the way and again found a way to lose. I worry if maybe the rope snaps for them, that now they're down 3-0 and they might not have Halliburton again. He's questionable. We'll have to wait and see if he's able to get back in. He's probably going to try to play, knowing that his team's facing an elimination, but facing a sweep. But I don't know how effective is he going to be, and second of all, if he's going to be able to start. But either way, Indiana's shown me enough fight throughout the course of the season where I don't think it's going to be a situation where they go quietly. So, with a little bit less enthusiasm than I had for Game 3 on Saturday when I took Indiana, I'm going to come back and take them again. 7.5 here tonight, getting the points against the Celtics. It's hard not to bet an over in this series, I'll tell you that. You keep waiting and waiting and waiting for, the defense to maybe pick up a little bit, maybe the shot making to not be as good, but you're just seeing a lot of fluid basketball. And I don't know if there's much of an adjustment Rick Carlisle can make defensively because, Boston's just finding ways to make shots now. And the scary part is for the Celtics is they still don't even have Kristaps Porzingis available to them just yet. But when I think you look at the situation here with the Boston Celtics tonight, it's all a question of focus for them, in my opinion. Do they have the focus? Do they have the, purpose and the intent in mind to finish this series off? Are they going to, slough off again, screw around, go through these portions of a game where they can sleepwalk? I mean, let's be real. We've seen this a bunch from Boston. I do believe in my heart of hearts that Indiana will compete for 48 minutes. For that reason, I'm going to take them here plus 7.5 with or without Halliburton. I'm back on the over again, 222, 222.5. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. 3 games in this series. 3 games have gone over the total. We've seen also, pretty not even really close to the total in any case either. 261 in Game 1, 236 total points in Game 2, 225 in Game 3. That one came closer, but, you still got over the number. There hasn't been enough of an adjustment to me. So for me, I'll go back to the same 2 bets we swept the board with on Saturday. Pacers plus the points, over 222, 222.5 for Game 4 tonight with the Celtics and the Pacers. For me, I would look at Saturated. Good to see you in the chat. Andrew Nembhard and TJ McConnell have got to play well. I think this is a game specifically, too, though, for Pascal Siakam, okay? You are the guy that's won a championship. I know it was on the bootstraps of Kawhi Leonard that year with the Toronto Raptors. He's the catalyst for that big championship that they had in that 2019 season. But Pascal Siakam has playoff experience. The one guy on this team that does extensive playoff experience, elimination game experience. I think this is a game where he's got to dominate. He's got to look for his shot. He's got to take over, and he's got to be, be that guy that gets the 30-point night. With all due respect to Nembhard getting them 32 points in Game 3, I think that's a spot that Siakam's got to be able to be that for the Pacers tonight. So any and all Pascal Siakam props I do like here in this game, Game 4 tonight. You can find pretty much over 22.5 at minus 120 at DraftKings. I definitely think that's worth a look as far as the point prop on Pascal Siakam. You can sprinkle on the double-double even, which is plus 245 for Siakam here in this game tonight. I think that's a potential as well. I think he's got to elevate his game a little bit. Nembhard, as long as I think you just keep going back to Nembhard as long with over points because it's only 15 and a half. Like, I don't expect him to get 32 again, but the point prop right now with Nembhard is lined at a point where all he needs to do is get half of that. 16 points will cash your ticket. So I don't think they've made enough of an adjustment. If there's no Halliburton once again for Indiana, I think Nembhard's going to have to look to shoot the ball more and look for that offense in a game like this, facing elimination. So I do like Nembhard again over points for the Pacers. Like I said, Siakam, he could be close to that. No, it's not a bargain number. Saturated, I agree there at the 22.5, but I feel this is a night where he's got to push himself. You're still living in a world without Porzingis here. You shouldn't be settling. You shouldn't be, in a situation where you feel you can't win one individual matchup, especially in the paint. You've got to be able to be there with force tonight, draw some contact, get the Celtics maybe in a little bit of foul trouble. I think if Siakam's able to do that, I just feel like with his playoff experience, his experience in situations where they've been facing elimination in the playoffs, he's been in these spots before. It's time, I think, for him to have one of those games where he gets you 27, 28, maybe even 30 points. So that's why I'm going to take that over 22.5. Again, there's nothing that you've seen so far that tells you he's going to get a lot more than that as far as the where the point prop is at 22.5. But I think in a spot like this, he's got to be the guy here for the Indiana Pacers tonight. All right, we flip over to the Western Conference Final. Again, we're only on doing this show Mondays and Wednesdays, so we'll talk about the West as well, which is on Tuesday night. Game 4, Minnesota-Dallas. Dallas 2-point home favorites, 210 the total in this one. I think I would probably just feel more comfortable taking Dallas to end the series. I've been on Minnesota first quarter and first half a lot in this series, especially game 1, game 2. And of course they cashed there. I went back to it last night and I felt a lot better about Minnesota first quarter, first half than the full game. But even last night, the one thing Minnesota's been able to do in this series is have a good first half and start to the game. And even last night, they couldn't do it for the first time. It was Dallas that had a pretty good start to that game. So, as far as I'm concerned, I would still lean Minnesota first quarter, first half. It's just because, look, is there a shred of pride in this team? If there is, you got to expect they come out strong. But there's no way I trust them for 48 minutes at this point because Dallas is the better team. Minnesota could be up at halftime, and Dallas has the not only Luka and Kyrie, but we need to start talking about how, and we saw it again in Game 3 last night on the home court. There were questions about, Derek Jones and Gafford and Derek Lively and all these guys, and how well were they going to play because you didn't always get great contributions from them in the first 2 games. Well, they go back home and everything is right again all of a sudden. We do want to keep an eye, though, on the status of Lively, of course, for Game 4. Remember, he had the neck issue that he suffered in Game 3 last night. Sprained neck, questionable. It doesn't sound bad, though. It sounds like the tests that they ran on Lively's neck are that they avoided any kind of significant damage or concern. So if you ask me, he's probably going to play. If I had to guess right now, that we'll see Derek Lively in Game 4 for Dallas. But again, it is something you want to be aware of and keep an eye on it. I can't say enough about all these additions that they made. The Gafford addition, the PJ Washington's been incredible through these whole playoffs for the Dallas Mavericks. So you got to give the front office a lot of credit. They finally they've given this team a nice little supporting cast. We know Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving are the stars, but boy, the way they have played in these playoffs has been impressive. I also want to point out Karl Anthony Towns has got to be aggressive here. Everyone's talking about it, and for good reason. Him shooting 32 threes is absurd, especially at the percentage that he's shooting in this series from beyond the arc, which is abysmal. He has got to start pounding the paint and going to the tin and trying to draw fouls and simplify his offensive game because this nonsense with him shooting a million threes when he can't hit water in a boat has got to stop right now with Karl Anthony Towns. You're not Steph Curry, man. You're not this gifted three-point shooter. That's a tool in your toolbox, but it's not the primary tool as to what makes you a great player under normal circumstances. It's your size, it's your rebounding, it's your rim protection, it's your ability to score inside, which is, I think, one of your strengths. It's not stepping back and shooting a million threes. It's not. So he's got to figure that out now. And it might already be too late because he's already shot way more threes the last few games, and it's really hurt his team. I can't complain about Anthony Edwards. I thought he played all right last night. Could you want him to play even a little better? Sure. But, at least I saw it from him. I've seen it from Naz Reid in this series. I've seen it at times from McDaniels. I thought Mike Conley showed you great veteran leadership last night for Minnesota. But I'm telling you what, Karl Anthony Towns has simply got to stop with the three-point shot. And we'll see if he can figure that out. Because I'll tell you what, from a pure buy low standpoint, it sets up so perfectly for maybe him over points tomorrow night, simply because, look, no one's going to want him. Everyone's just, roasting him today, whether it's social media, television, you name it, for just this ridiculous thought process of shooting a ton of threes. I know the TNT crew with holy shit, excuse me. The TNT crew last night with Charles and Shaq and Kenny and Ernie Johnson, they were all over it. And Draymond, they were all over it with the just taking way too many three-point shots, especially with the percentage he is shooting from beyond the arc, from the perimeter. You'd like to say it's a buy low spot. His point prop is down to 18.5 now. Sometimes the way this works in the NBA, when the narrative is so negative, it's fallen to this level as far as the negativity toward Karl Anthony Towns. That's often the time where you want to step in and buy low. So I'm mulling over Cat over points for Game 4, a redemption game, or at least show some pride, man, and just keep your game simple and be aggressive. Go to the basket, draw a foul. Whatever happened to that? It's like he's totally forgotten that element of what has made him a very good player all these years. So, we'll see if he can, kind of make those adjustments here tomorrow night in Game 4, because I'm tempted to maybe look at a prop in that direction. And I'm going to go back to the over here. It's weird with both of these series. I did not expect this to be an over series. I didn't. But I think the big reason for that is because, look, the Minnesota Timberwolves have just had zero answer for anything Dallas has done. And we've talked about how these totals in this series have been in the 207 range. We've finally seen a little adjustment. I see 210 now as the total for Game 4 here between the Wolves and the Mavs. But the first game had 213. The Game 2 had 217. Game 3 last night had 223. They're still clear in these totals. And I don't know what defensive adjustments Chris Finch and the Wolves can make, that they haven't made already, that's going to produce a dramatically different result at the defensive end. We've seen it for one game, we've seen it for 2 games, and we certainly saw it for Game 3. But they're just having a very difficult time now guarding this Dallas Mavericks team. We've seen 3 games and 3 pieces of evidence, and a body of work through these 3 games that tells me Minnesota can't defend Dallas. So what is suddenly going to change here in Game 4? So as far as the total goes at 210, I would only look at over here when it comes to Minnesota Dallas for Game 4 on Tuesday night. All right, Connor Mack just let me know he's out today because of the holiday, so nothing wrong with that. We wish him well. We wish everyone that's watching as well a very enjoyable Memorial Day holiday. Shout out to everyone in the chat, including, of course, Saturated, who's always in the chat when I do the show on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the NBA show with Ski, Dutch, and Wham. And, of course, we'll be back with that show tomorrow. Hit the like button, Gold Juice, Timmy OG as well. Appreciate you tuning in here for this edition of Bet with Bobano. Let's wrap it up. Best bet for tonight. I'm going to go just to Boston, Indiana, over 2. Actually, you know what? Bet Online has 222 minus 115 for the over. Let's rock with that. Over 222. minus 115. Bet online, shop around 222.5 at many books still as well. So I'm just going to go back to the well. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Indiana's going to push the pace at home. We know that. That's what they do. I don't think they're going to go down without a fight here tonight in Game 4, with or without Halliburton. But at the same point in time, Indiana's defensive shortcomings are also showing up. Not able to hold a lead in Game 1. Not able to hold a lead in Game 3. We saw Boston do a lot of damage in Game 2. So, we've seen 3 overs in this series. I'm not convinced it changes here tonight in Game 4. So we'll use that for best bet. Game 4, Eastern Conference Final, Boston, Indiana, over 222, minus 115 for my best bet. Good stuff. Shout out to everyone in the chat. By the way, I did realize, like 5 minutes after going off the air, Gold Jew, I did fail to give my best bet on the Ice Guys hockey show earlier. Just a brain fart. What can I say? Just forgot to mention it. Just totally forgot to mention it. It's Dallas, Edmonton over 5.5, minus 112. That's the best bet. Dallas Stars, Edmonton Oilers over 5.5, minus 112. That's the Ice Guys show best bet for today. And there you go. A little bonus hockey play for me on this show as well. So there you have it. All right. That's a wrap. Thanks to everyone for joining me. Hit the like button. Those of you watching in the United States, enjoy the rest of your Memorial Day holiday. And again, we should take time out to acknowledge the servicemen and women, the troops, and the people around the world that serve to ensure our freedoms each and every day on this Memorial Day. So we thank them for everything they do. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Memorial Day. We'll be back on Wednesday, same time, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, with another edition of Bet with Bobano. I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Monday night. Bet like Tony Soprano. Bet with Bobano. And we'll see you again on Wednesday for another edition of Bet with Bobano.